Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So Christmas is over, and it's about New Year's Eve. And I thought I'd check in with one of the most inspirational young ladies I've had the privilege of meeting over the course of the last little while, Dorothy Knight, who is a best-selling author. Her book just last week reached best-selling category of an incredibly interesting book about being a wounds to wisdom. She talks about it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. She's got another book coming up called Being a 5D Mom, and we're going to chat a little bit about that. And she's got an interesting attitude in regards to New Year's and getting ready. And she's talked a little bit about in Wounds to Wisdom about the courage it takes to publish and the process of writing and the process of being vulnerable. And so I think those are all good topics that we can talk about as we think about 2022. And she's coming to us from Costa Rica. Dorothy Knight, how are you?
Hola, hello everyone. It's such a pleasure to be on this show once again, and how much has changed in a year since we've last chatted.
Dorothy, you also said you were an embodiment coach. What is an embodiment coach?
An embodiment coach is someone who helps you integrate all of your higher aspects into your physical body, because we are these amazing multidimensional beings. There are so many layers to our existence and to our reality, and it's not just one linear way of thinking and living. So when we start to remember these aspects of who we really are and we align them with our soul purpose, then we start to live a very soulfully aligned kind of life. And we step into the full embodiment of who we are, and we express that through our soul, because that's what we've come here to do, is to share our true and most authentic gifts with the world.
That's interesting. Most people think they only want to share the good sides of things and the positive sides. And actually, you posted just last week something that said the story you least want to tell is the one that needs to be told. Why is that?
Yes, we all have a story to share. And as an author, that was one of the most cathartic processes and experiences in writing a chapter in this book, this beautiful book that we just released, Wounds to Wisdom. Honestly, when I started writing my chapter, I felt that I was playing it safe. I didn't want the world to exactly see and experience this side of me. It almost made me feel like an imposter. And we all have that imposter syndrome sometimes when we're maybe starting off a new project or a business. We're like, we don't think we can really walk our talk. Do we have what it takes to be successful and all that kind of stuff? So the ego traps start to set in, right? We start to hold back and we resist really fully expressing that soul and our soul story. But that's the story that needs to come out. So through this whole process, I realized that it was a disservice not to share my most true and authentic story. And people who are in the well-being and healing practices, this type of industry, we're known as light workers. And we're not only light workers, we're also shadow workers, dark workers. Like, you have to know your shadow side, the dark aspects of who you are, to go through that, to come out on the other side lighter and brighter. There's no other way around it. We can skirt around it all we want, but then we're not really facing our fears, our traumas, our unresolved inner child wounding. So that's what
our traumas, our fears,
about.
Our inner child trauma,
our inner child wounding.
Our inner child wounding. What is inner child wounding?
Inner child wounding is all of the experiences that we've had right from being conceived here on planet Earth. So it's even things that we've experienced in our mother's womb and what our mother's pregnancy was like, what our birth was like. So all of those things are encoded to us genetically and into our DNA. So from about the age 0 till 7, certain parts of our brain are not developed enough to rationalize external events that are traumatic. So even for children that are experiencing this pandemic, it's a trauma for them. And for adults, it's also a traumatic event because we are repeating our unresolved trauma. So now there's genetic markers that are being activated in our DNA because we're not really experiencing anything new. It might be a new situation that's presented to us, but the way we respond is absolutely based on what we've always known.
So why is it? why is it important to expose your soul story, I think you called it, to people, to the world?
Because it helps others to realize that they're not alone. And when we have to sit with our pain and realize our wounding and our story, it's heavy. It can be very heavy for many people. And we feel ashamed, we feel guilty, we feel vulnerable. It makes us feel incredibly vulnerable. But it's one of the greatest gifts that we can offer to humanity is to expose those parts of ourselves, because it gives others permission to do the same. And we realize that in this process, we're all just walking around with unresolved trauma. Everything that's happening in this world is just a reflection of a bunch of adults that have not resolved their inner trauma, because it brings us back into an energy of contraction, of fear, of limited thinking, of certain programming and belief systems that actually hold us back and keep us very small. And then we just replay those lifestyles on loop over and over and over, and we're not actually fully living. We're not actually embodying our pure potential. So we can think about our own life experiences where we have gone through that process, where we said no to life. Maybe this year, that's a great reflection to think on, is where did I say no to life? Where did I resist life? What opportunities did I shut myself out of or set limits on just because I said I couldn't? And that I couldn't, where does that come from? Where does that belief system originate from? That is what our inner healing journey invites us to do, is to go on that journey, that very inquisitive journey of going deeper, and not deeper outside of ourselves, but actually inside of ourselves. Because everything that we're seeking the answers to is inside of us. It's always been.
We're chatting tonight with Dorothy Knight, a little bit about two books, one that she's written, one that she's in the process of writing, and then a little about New Year's and setting the right tone for 2022. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Dorothy Knight in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Dorothy Knight. Dorothy is a best-selling author of a book. Currently, she is an embodiment coach. She's a healer. She's written one book, and she's embarking on writing another book, a solo book. And she's a inspirational individual. And I've enjoyed chatting with her before, and I wanted to bring her to you tonight because I think a lot of us are sort of thinking about things as we manage through the holiday season, and we manage through COVID, and we manage through our lives, and we think about 2022. Dorothy, you don't look like you're in cold Toronto like I am. Whereabouts are you?
I have relocated to Costa Rica.
You've relocated to Costa Rica. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And are you staying there forever or just for a while?
Only God knows. I'm probably going to be here for a while, at least for our Canadian winter, I'm sure.
And whereabouts in Costa Rica are you?
Currently, I'm in the Central Valley area, so that's near San Jose.
And the weather is perfect?
It is absolutely perfect.
And you're there with your family?
Yes, with my husband and 2 children.
Fantastic. And cat. Mm-hmm. You brought the cat down from Toronto?
We brought the cat down. Excellent traveler. She amazes us.
And it looks like you've got good Wi-Fi. So my gosh, you've got technology and everything.
We've got it all. We're living the life.
Sounds like you are. So you've just recently published this book. Tell us what the title is, where we can get it, and what it's about.
Yeah. So this current project is a multi-author book. It's 9 stories. So there's 9 women that got together. I'm one of them, from around the world. And they're truly beautiful, inspirational stories of alchemizing your pain into your greatest gift. So I truly feel there's a story for everyone in this book. There's something or an archetype that we can identify with. And each author has really poured her heart out into this story, into this book. And it's just such a great collection. All of the proceeds of this book are going to charity. So all the proceeds are going to Shwas Foundation in India, in Ahmedabad, India. So this is an organization for underprivileged children to receive better quality in their educational experience. So it's for a very, very good cause. It's currently available for purchase on Amazon in Kindle format for a limited price of only 99 cents.
99 cents.
If you 99 cents. And the hard copy version will be available in early January.
And what's your chapter about?
My chapter is titled Surrendering to the Alchemy of Life. So it's truly the story itself. Like, I wanted to write a book back in, I set the intention in early 2010. 2010, I wrote, I'm going to be a best-selling author. So if anyone's thinking of New Year's resolutions and setting those conscious intentions, this is a wonderful time to do it. Because I did it.
Is, you said it in 2010, so it's not something that happens, just has to happen in the upcoming year. It can happen in the upcoming decade.
Absolutely. But that's because the chapter had to write itself in the following decade. So my story is exactly about the 10 years that came after that. And it's truly about my journey of alchemizing my own pain into wisdom, yes, but it's about how I was living the very programmed type of life of being in the corporate hustle, grind, being successful, but utterly unfulfilled and unhappy, and how I would continue to fill that void with everything outside of myself, whether it was through relationships, the next job, the next party, whatever it was, but it was all very temporary. And for me, it was that moment in 2008, just prior to that, where I had a motorcycle accident. So that was my first initiation. That was my first awakening. And it's truly beautiful because the world needs us open. It needs us open. And that's what alchemy, our personal alchemy through our healing process does. It cracks us open and we figure out very quickly where we have resisted life, where we have said no to life, where we were living somebody else's life, which I realized I was.
You were living someone else's life.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. I was living what I was told to do, what would pay the bills, what would make me successful, but not necessarily very happy on the inside. And a lot of us follow that path. We follow maybe our family's expectations, our partner's expectations, but we don't really fulfill our own. And sometimes we don't even know what that is because we haven't given ourselves permission to ask. But when we do ask those deeper questions, we go on quite a beautiful journey and we start to understand what this life is about for us, how unique it is for us. It's a very unique experience. We're all sharing an experience on earth, but we all have something very individual, very rare to offer. So then we start connecting with what we love to do and what we're good at and how to create a beautiful life around that. And it's a completely different way of living when we do this paradigm shift and step into heart-centered, intentional living. So that's what my story is about.
Heart-centered, intentional living.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions, if you could, and there's been a lot of writing lately about something called the Great Resignation, which is suggesting that during the last 18 months or the last year, because of maybe COVID, people are resigning en masse from corporate jobs, and the gig economy is at an all-time high. Some of that may be forced because people don't have full-time jobs, but given the unemployment level is so low, the hypothesis is that it's because people are choosing to work in a gig contract kind of economy and doing more entrepreneurial things and things they like rather than the grind of the corporate world. What you're suggesting is that there's a process that you have to go through of heart-centered, intentional thinking, of deep thinking, of understanding yourself. Tell me, if you could, either how you went through that or how you would recommend people think through what they love, what they're good at, what they're passionate about, what they want to do in life.
Yes. Start asking those questions. So definitely, if we're constantly in this entertainment cycle, circuit, hustle, 9-to-5 thing, and we identify so much with all of these other roles outside of ourselves, we don't create the time, first of all, or the space to be with ourselves. And that's the greatest quote, right? Is know thyself. How many of us actually know ourselves? We just live life on autopilot. We go through the motions. We just fill things with entertainment, with things that numb us even, because we don't want to sit with ourselves. That's the greatest signal there. Signification is like, if you have a hard time sitting with yourself, there is definitely something deeper to dive into, to start exploring and understanding. And that's the hardest part for some, like even learning a meditation practice. I remember when I first started, I could barely sit with my thoughts, like with myself for 2-3 minutes. And we get so frustrated, right? Because we want results. We're so conditioned for success, for those results, for getting it done. And that's not how it works sometimes. Sometimes we have to reverse engineer things. And I love reverse engineering things because our mind has to arrive at a destination before the rest of us does, before we physically get there. And that's why, especially, this is a great thing when it comes to New Year's resolutions. If you're setting any intentions, period, if you set intentions throughout the year, not just December 31st, I don't believe in resolutions anyways, but setting those intentions, see what it is that you are going for. What are you asking for? What are you intending for? And then what are the steps, the divinely inspired action steps that are going to take you there bit by bit? You got to go backwards. And then it brings you to this origin point right now where you are. So then it doesn't seem as overwhelming because life happens. You're going to have resistance come your way. There are things that are going to want to pull you away from that intention, away from that alignment. And that's where so many people drop the ball. They just give up. They get frustrated. They go back to their subconscious programming and just play out the same timeline again and again and again. And that's the beautiful thing about the universe. You get to do that. You get to do it as many times as you want. There is no deadline.
Regrettably, not as many, because you do get old after a while. But
you can speed this up by just sitting with yourself and getting to know yourself. Maybe exploring your past life, like in terms of your experiences. These are things that I do with my clients too.
Okay, so let's break it down. So
yeah.
Number one, you said you don't believe in resolutions, but you believe in intentions. What's the difference between a resolution and an intention?
I feel resolutions are set up for failure because they give you do it on a certain day that's mandated to you. Like, this is the day you're going to set it. And maybe you just make something up on the spot. You haven't actually planned for it. I set my intentions way earlier than that, but that's just me. But I wouldn't do it necessarily at that time. Give yourself time to figure out what you want. And a lot of people lack clarity when they set New Year's resolutions. They just do, oh, I just want to lose weight. That's great. Well, how much weight do you want to lose? By when do you want to lose it? And then what are those steps? Reverse engineering it again to understand what's it going to take to get to that place.
Okay, so a lot of what you've been talking about is knowing yourself. And let's come back to that then. How do you do this heart-centered process that you talked about? You've talked about meditation. You've talked about being quiet with yourself. You talked about going deep. Those are all nice sounding things, but like, what is it you do? How do you do it? How do you figure out what you're passionate about?
With my clients, I have you we sit together and we just discover, what do you want? What do you really, really want? Not what do you think you want? What do you want?
So you go through a series of questions over time where you're grilling them, or you're just asking question after question after question, or what?
No, it's not an interrogation process. It's an organic conversation that flows. And the thing is, the first answers that often come out are the ones that we're conditioned to say, because we're afraid to actually say what we really want sometimes, or admit them. So it comes not being in your head so much and rationalizing everything. It comes from dropping from your head into your heart space, because that is the true brain of the body, is your heart space. So in the heart space, that's where your truth lies. So that's where everything that even hurts is going to be there, blocking you from what you really want. So we have to uncover those blocks first. So that's where any type of energy work, any type of healing work is very beneficial, because that's the stuff that's clogging up this authenticity from coming out, because we hide it. We guard ourselves. We don't let love into our lives. We don't believe in love even. And all of those belief systems, they stem from
believe in love. Christmas is all about love. Valentine's Day is all about love. We believe in love.
Those are commercial holidays. That's bullshit. I want unconditional love every single day, 365, not just on 2 holidays a year.
Okay, so explain to me what you think unconditional love is, and how's it different than commercial love?
Commercial love has expectation first and foremost, and we are very disappointed very quickly. We get very frustrated, and we hold a lot of grief and deep resentment when it doesn't work out. Unconditional love is living beyond that expectation and loving beyond any expectation, loving someone even when they hurt us. But we know that no one's actually here to hurt us. And if anything, we're all mirrors for each other. So whoever shows up in your life is the perfect mirror for you wherever you are in your journey, because they are a reflection to you of what still needs to be healed, what is still unresolved. And this is in our most intimate relationships, now at Christmas time with our family dynamics and relationships. So 2022, if we're going to look at the energetics of things, 2021, even in numerology, add up the numbers, the number 5. If you know anything about numerology, 5 is the number of constant creation and influx of energy. It's not very stable. We're moving now into a very different energy. So now we're adding up 2022, we have the number 6. The number 6 brings us into the energetics of harmony, of peace, of leadership, particularly in the home. So it's very interesting that across the world, many places, including in Canada, they're going back into further lockdowns. So rather than being frustrated and at each other, because you're back with everybody and everybody's energy in your home space, it's some of the hardest energy to work through, but it's family. And we love our family unconditionally, right?
Yep.
Right. Some people say that, but I don't know if that's true, because family has a lot of conditioning, a lot of templates that need to be resolved. And that's the opportunity here, is if we're all so close together, how can we shift that conversation? How can we flip the narrative, maybe from the one that's been existing for so long in our family dynamics? Because we're all products of our environment. Yes, it is nature and nurture. Nature and nurture, they both coexist. So if our family dynamics are strained and we find ourselves easily triggered, for example, we find ourselves reactive, how can we become more responsive? Because when we're responsive, we're actually in the present moment. When we're in the present moment, we're actually in our power. We're not giving it away. It's not being extracted from us either.
So what, I apologize, what's the difference between being triggered and being responsive?
So when we're responsive, we are a witness to what is unfolding before us, but we stay very grounded in our space, in our energy. We're not letting our own wounding and emotions come up. We're acting from a place higher than that, from a place of consciousness. So in that consciousness, we're seeing however the other person's reacting to us, but we're not reacted by it. That's how you know you've done quite a bit of self-work and healing work, is when you're no longer reacting or triggered up by other people's stuff, by the drama, by the karma, by the emotions. You see it for what it is, because energy is neutral. It's what we assign to it, what we give power to, that becomes the reality, that becomes the narrative. So
okay. So coming back to commercial love versus unconditional love, I had one person describe it to me as an attitude toward a flower, that someone that wants to possess, that wants to own, that's commercial love, picks the flower and takes the flower where they go, and the flower ultimately dies because it can't grow once it's picked. Versus the other person that's got unconditional love allows the flower to exist in nature and grow whichever way it wants to grow based on the sunlight, and it's there for a long time, and you can enjoy its beauty, you can enjoy its smell, you can enjoy the color, but you can't own it, you can't possess it, you can't pick it. Is that at all a helpful analogy?
Yeah, we don't own anyone but ourselves and our responsibility and our choices that we make for ourselves. And that's beautiful. I love that analogy, because it's true. If we're constantly even just like standing over this flower, blocking it from the sun, we're smothering it. We're oppressing it from truly flourishing and thriving. And it's the same thing with the saying, like, if it's meant to be yours, it'll always come back to you. Or there's another quote: if it comes, let it. If it goes, let it. So there's no leash, there's no tether on love.
I don't know, because I heard this poem at one point in time, which sounds like what you're referring to. If you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. If it doesn't, it never was.
It was yours at the time to experience, but and open yourself up to a greater love.
Aren't some things worth putting effort into to keep?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's not, again, a level of expectation. You do it because you want to. You do it lovingly. You do it beyond condition. You do it because you care, because you know it'll make the other person feel good. So the whole commercial love, I mean, it's over glamorized, and we're not really taught to work through the other side of love, because we live in a dualistic reality. That is the experience on earth, but we can't know one without the other. So if we've had enough relationships where we've had some heartbreak, we probably figure out, hey, we know what we want in a partner. We start to set some boundaries because we teach others how we want to be treated all the time. All the time. We give them permission. We give them permission to access us a certain way. So if we don't have the utmost self-love for ourselves, first and foremost, the love that we have with ourselves dictates the relationship and the level of love we experience with everybody else.
We're chatting tonight with Dorothy Knight. She's getting us ready for the New Year's and telling us not to make resolutions, but to think about intentions, and a lot of other great suggestions about figuring about what we're passionate about, what we love, who we really are, going deep, trying to figure out who our authentic self is. We're going to take a break and come back more with Dorothy. And I'm going to ask her about being a 5D mom, which is another book that she's in the process of writing. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saturday Night 60. We're chatting tonight with Dorothy Knight. She is a abundance coach. She is a yoga master. She is an author, a best-selling author of one book, and another one under process right now. And it's called, Dorothy, being a 5D mom, I understand.
Yes, the title is The 5D Mom. Yeah.
What is the 5D mom all about?
So in the spiritual community, there's a lot of talk about the 3D reality and the 5D reality. So a lot of people allude to the Matrix, the movie, because it's essentially the red pill and the blue pill. So the 3D reality is a vibrational, so third dimensional reality, third dimensional. We're all here in the 3D. That's how we see each other. That's how we're in this physical body. It's a material realm. And this realm is very dense in terms of energy. So there's a lot of pain that's circulating around. We feel each other's thoughts. We feel each other's energy. Whether we admit to it or not, we are all collectively in this cosmic soup of energy. So from the third to the fifth dimension, there's the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is more of a segue from one to the other. And this is a thought form based dimension. And a lot of us go there every night when we're dreaming. So this is where thoughts start to become things, or subconscious, unprocessed things like we've been talking about, like unresolved trauma, plays itself out in dream form. So there's some merit to dreaming. So I would pay attention to what you're dreaming about, because there's maybe some wisdom and some guidance with what you're being presented to in your visions while you're sleeping. So when we move into the 5D is a dimensional energy bandwidth of reality. And it's already here on Earth. It is. We're in it. And some of us have already had glimpses of it. So whenever you've had those moments where you've just felt so connected to what you were doing, maybe your soul's purpose, maybe you were doing something of service to community, to humanity, or you created a book, or you created anything, a business, a project, a partnership, a new relationship, but it felt really in alignment with what you wanted and who you are. That is the 5D, the 5D. This is the cool thing about the 5D. It's like those moments where I say, where you go on vacation, for example, you had a really good time, you were living the life, and then you go all, oh, I have to go back to reality. I have to go back to work. And that's exactly what the 3D feels like. We don't want to be there in that kind of sense. The 5D is that joyful, intentional living, and we don't vacation from this life anymore. It is real time, instant time, now time, the present time. There is no other time. real-time manifestation. So because we've moved from the 4D, we're in a 5D, we actually manifest things a lot faster. So again, if you're thinking of setting some intentions and getting them to actually happen, that's the vibrational bandwidth you want to be in. And to be in that vibrational bandwidth, you got to do your healing work, because you can't sustain a higher vibrational bandwidth if you are bogged down with the density and the drama of your unresolved healing. So it all comes back together. So when we start to heal, we energetically, in our fascia, in our cells, we clear out space to be able to sustain a higher frequency and to hold it on the everyday, So then our everyday becomes very different than this person. This person's reality is very different from my reality and their reality. Our reality is so subjective, absolutely. But when you have done your inner healing work, it is so worth it. It is so worth it when you come into this place of freedom. No one can free you but yourself. No one can heal you but yourself. And it's truly the greatest investment and some of the hardest work you'll ever do, but it's so worthwhile to shift through all that, because you no longer are owned by your story. You own your story and you're actually here to write a better one. So that's what the 5D is all about. When we move into the 5D is actually the template, the energy that Earth was created in. But it got all distorted through historical timelines of war, poverty, scarcity mindset, all of that shit that we've been collectively carrying for how long now? We're galactically moving into a different part of the galaxy too, where the energies are very different. That's why we're feeling what we're feeling, whether we know it or not, whether we're aware of it or not, we are all feeling something. And there are a lot of shifts happening. So despite the doom and gloom of what's happening in the world, there's a lot of positive things that are happening too. There are a lot of people that are stepping into conscious leadership. And the world needs it more than ever. We need it in our structures, in our educational system, in our governments, in our healthcare, because it's all distorted, all of it's distorted. And we're here to create something better. This is that time.
What's conscious leadership in your mind?
Conscious leadership is authentic collaboration where everybody wins. Win-win-win scenarios.
Authentic collaboration where everybody wins. Sounds perfect, but like, how does that happen?
It starts with everybody stepping forward and number one, claiming their sovereignty. Despite any other narrative that's being thrown their way, if it doesn't feel good to you, if it doesn't feel healthy for you, if it doesn't feel authentic for you, question it, question everything, discern what is being presented to you. So many people are so concerned about what they eat every single day because they want to keep a nice figure, they want to be healthier, they're vegan, blah, blah, blah. But what are you ingesting in terms of energy in the media, in your conversations? That stuff is just as much a part of your being as anything that you eat in terms of food. So maybe that needs a detox. Maybe you need a diet with your media consumption or your conversations. Who are you surrounded by? What's their energy like? Do they wish you well? Are they progressive or are they degenerative? So I feel like everyone, if anything, 2022 energetically is a master number of conscious collaboration, community, connection, all the things that we have lost in the last 2 years because of self-isolation and all this stuff, right? So we're trying to break those barriers in whatever way we can, whether it's online, we're still very connected. And there's so many beautiful things that are still happening on this planet. If you seek the good, you will find it. There are people that are launching. Absolutely, absolutely. If you stick to the doom and gloom narrative, that becomes your reality. But if you seek the change, you want to be that change, as Gandhi says, you will create that change. So that's exactly what this 5D bandwidth is all about. It's not a destination, it's an energy.
But you're the 5D mom. How's the 5D mom different than just a 5D person?
It's not different, but I specifically work with moms because moms are amazing. Moms are master manifestors and they're sacred vessels of creation. So not just for procreating children, we're here to create realities and new businesses and new collaborations or partnerships, because We are very in tune with our sacred feminine energy that is so intuitive, that is so receptive, but we're here to partner exactly with also the sacred divine masculines, which are the action-oriented energies. And all of us, whether male or female, we have both of those qualities inside of us as well, which are also distorted because of timelines and social conditioning. So this is where all of humanity, all of Earth is going through a major reset point, because all of these energies have not been harmonious and in balance for so long. And that's why all these structures are now being put into light. They are being questioned for the first time, maybe ever. So it's definitely, we're not out of the woods yet, but at least we're moving forward. And we certainly can't go back. We can't go back. And I feel like the momentum, the time, the energy is only going to amplify and accelerate for this progressive movement. But for me, 2022, I mean, that narrative, the doom and gloom one, isn't going away yet, but it feels more hopeful. It does feel like a very different energy where there will be some significant shifts that will take place.
I hope you're right. I think you're right. But it almost sounds like you think that this whole COVID thing has been, the way someone described it, as a timeout that the whole world was forced to take, and that the timeout was actually helpful because we had an opportunity to spend some time with ourselves and give some thought to some of these issues. And it's led to this great resignation and gig economy and entrepreneurialism. And you're writing a book and going to Costa Rica and other stuff that might not have happened in a normal world of 2020 and 2021 if we hadn't had what happened in January to March of 2020 that we were all kind of surprised and shocked with. But everything you've said comes back to, and you keep on referring it to doing the deep work, the inner work, the unresolved trauma. You've said that numerous different times, and you've said that you sit down with people and you ask them questions and you have an organic, authentic conversation. You've talked about meditation. I still don't understand though. What do you do? Like, I can understand a psychiatrist, putting you down on a couch and, asking you about what happened when you were a kid. I don't understand what you're suggesting doing the deep work is. Maybe help me a bit more if you could. Sure.
So as myself, as a being, I'm a sacred vessel in the sense where I just hold tremendous space with whomever I'm working with. The stuff that comes my way that's shared with me is sometimes incredibly difficult. And for some people, it's the first time they open up and actually share their true story and what they've gone through in life. So that it's on its own is an incredibly cathartic process, is just to let that out of our system, out of our body, and release it through words and be heard, non-judgmentally listened to. Maybe a psychiatrist can do that for you, but they might prescribe certain things along the way, which I am totally not about, because I am here to empower you to your own self-healing. And I do this through energy work, whether it's just energy sessions. I can scan your auric field and figure out where you're holding on to energy blockages. If you have a strong energy field, or is it cracked and your soul is fragmented, or you have energy attachments to you, or you're losing energy, you have energy leaks. Because if you feel tired all the time, that's your sign. Your energy is not running the way it's meant to. You should never be tired. If you're tired, you're maybe uninspired, but you also probably have some energy imbalances or leaks that are happening. So it's really good to get an energetic plumber like myself to gauge what's happening.
An energetic
in terms
plumber.
Of the energy centers. Energetic plumber, that's what I do. There you go. I'm an energetic plumber. I just made a new title for myself because it makes sense. It makes sense. There you go. So everything flows the way it's supposed to flow, and you feel good, you feel balanced, you feel like you have vitality back in your life. And we are all essentially energy. We all have energy signatures. We radiate energy much like a radio tower. We all emit a certain frequency, and we want it to be nice and strong because we own that energy and we occupy that energy, and we're not afraid to stand in it. We're actually very strong and powerful, and we're all here to feel good, and we're all here to be healthy and happy. And that's what I do with clients. So I do it through conversation. I do it through energy practices, energy work and modalities, whether it's Reiki, whether it's generational healing and going through those timelines of unresolved trauma in your family lineage. It's really important because some people don't even realize that. They're just carrying in their DNA unresolved trauma from their parents and their parents' parents and their parents' parents. So there's a lot of worth and a lot of value in doing that type of work. And then I also work with people, with clients as a coach. So I'm a straight shooter and I love it. I don't hold anything back. If I see you're holding something back or you are not stepping forth into your pure potential, like we'll work through it. We'll work through it layer by layer by layer. So I help people discover their alignment. Maybe they don't even know what that is. I help them stay in their alignment and I help them serve from their highest alignment. And then it's a win-win-win scenario for everybody.
You're in Costa Rica, so you can do this virtually?
Yes, I do. I work with clients internationally.
So how would you assess my energy virtually?
Virtually, I tune into you energetically. So even now I can see your crown chakra. I mean, I'm not going to disclose anything online unless you wanted me to, but yeah, I can see energy. So energy's
what do you see in my crown chakra?
It's very busy. There's a lot of energy around it. A lot of thinking, a lot of thoughts. Some of them aren't even yours. They're just like little energy attachments, but there's a lot of top heavy energy, I call it. So what that happens, because universal life force energy comes in through the crown chakra and it makes its way down the major energy centers along the spine before it grounds and anchors into the earth. By the time it reaches like this lower half of the body, it starts to get weaker because it's so obstructed up here. So this is now like the crown chakra, the third eye. That's our spiritual guidance, our inner knowing, our inner GPS. It's imbalanced too. It's like that. There's something there, but I don't know if I fully believe everything. That's kind of that conundrum that many people face right now too with this 3D, 5D thing we're talking about. Then the throat chakra is like, we're saying what we think people want to hear, but are we really authentically expressing ourselves? I had to heal this myself personally. My throat chakra was incredibly blocked. There's no way I would be able to do this a few years ago, just sit here and talk about this stuff because of judgment, right? Where does that come from? Belief systems. Okay. So then we drop into the heart center. And then the heart, if there's anything with relationships, broken, dissolved relationship, that likes to linger there. And then there's like this apathy, this uncertainty, this conditioning where we're not really letting all of life's goodness come in. We're not really quite open to receiving it. And a lot of women deal with this as well. They're not open. They will give so much of themselves, specifically moms, martyr moms out there. Don't be a martyr mom. You got to fill up on yourself first, fill up on love, and then you can pour abundantly. Never pour from an empty cup. It's a disservice to whomever you're serving. And then we have the solar plexus. So now the current starts to get weaker, and this is for many people, generally speaking. So we have blocks there. This has to do with our power center, our willpower, going for it, our own inner leader, that warrior, determination. So if we're like wishy-washy, where maybe we're good at manifesting something, but we can't sustain it, there's something that's happening there. We drop the ball again because of something up here or here. So these things all need to be super fluid, super open, super balanced, and they work cohesively and congruently together. So if something's out of balance, then everything's built upon that, right? So it's really good to figure out where you're storing energy or blockages or unresolved trauma in your energy centers and in your tissues, because your body will never forget. Your body will never forget. It's our greatest compass, but so many of us don't listen to it anymore. We'll just pop a Tylenol or do something else and just get over it, right? But that's, again, pain is your body saying, hey, something's not right. I'm not in harmony. I'm not in alignment. Please listen to me.
So it's almost New Year's Eve. Other than don't make resolutions, think longer term about intentions. What suggestions have you got for us? Have you got any rituals that you do on New Year's Eve? Any suggestions?
Rituals? No. Rituals and resolutions, 2 R words. I don't really work with them. Okay, so what I'm feeling is, wow, a lot of people are in very interesting headspaces. Okay. So just number one, if you can, whoever's listening, wherever you are, maybe it's on this drive when you're by yourself in your car, this is the best time to do it. Make sure that you create, number one, a sacred space with nobody's energy interfering. And you need to do that daily. You need to do that. You need to disengage from everybody daily, because we all just attached to each other. So get to know what you feel like. What is your unique frequency, your energy signature when it's just you on your own by yourself? Maybe you got to lock yourself in the bathroom. Maybe you're going to go for a walk, but wherever it is, make sure that no one is nearby. If they're in another room, it's okay, but make sure if it's you in that one room, it's you alone. And close your eyes, start tuning in. And you don't have to necessarily meditate, but just see how you're feeling in that given moment. Like, what are you authentically feeling? And don't brush it off. Don't discount it. Don't suppress it. Just, if you're really feeling angry, if you're feeling afraid, call it out. I feel afraid. Notice that I use the words I feel. I didn't say I am, because I am is like an intention. It's an affirmation. It's creating a reality. It's like casting a spell. Those words are very powerful. So start to pay attention to your language. So I can say, I feel afraid. Why? Where does this fear, this first root origin, this cause, this first memory of this fear come from? That's really important too, is pinpointing the origin of whatever that emotion is. Because fear, guilt, anger, shame, they're all essentially rooted in the lowest vibrational energy frequency, which is fear. Fear is the lowest on the scale. So whatever that is, sit with it. Sit with it. Name it. Befriend it. It's not who you are. It's just an aspect of you that you've experienced.
So I guess what you're saying is, on New Year's Eve, take some time to be with yourself. Don't just go and party. Take some time to be with yourself and think things through, and maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Don't drink too much, because that lowers your vibration too. And then you might get cracks in your auric field, and who knows what's going to attach to you. You want to start 2022 really strong and really clean. So absolutely make the time, make the space, sit with yourself, sit with the feelings, write it down if you need to. That's very powerful. Put pen to paper, start to pinpoint the origins of these first memories, cellular memory that you have of these feelings. Where do they come from? What's the story behind it? Get to know your story, get to know your family's story, start working through it layer by layer. It sounds like a lot of work, but when you actually do it consistently and consciously, you move through it a lot faster. And then you can start rewriting that story and saying, well, this is the story I live by. I don't like it.
Dorothy Knight,
I'm done with the story.
You're awesome. If people want to follow you on social media or access your books, how do they do that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of great information and a lot of fun stuff happening always on my Instagram page at 5D Mom. My new website, 5dmom.com, is launching very, very soon. And we have my Facebook page, which is the 5D Mom. So yeah, I would love to hear from you, would love to connect with you. And I'm more than happy to support you in your own healing journey for a very prosperous and abundant and healthy and happy new year and beyond. So thank you so much for having me.
Dorothy Knight, thank you so much for being with us. Good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on New Year's Eve.